Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sunday evening live here on Material Issues, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, start time. I am Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here in very warm South Jersey, 7 p.m. at night. Joining me, as always, my co host, my very good friend, the president of the International Pop Overthrow Music Festival, and the man, the myth, the legend, hosting a Nilsson tribute show tonight and wearing his famous stained glass shirt, Mr. David Bash. David, good late afternoon to you. Good evening to everybody else. Good to see you,
Yes,
buddy.
good evening to everyone all over the world except for here um, and Hawaii, of course. Um, yeah, I'm going to be emceeing. I wouldn't call myself the host. The host is a gentleman named Todd Lawrence who put this all together.
Yeah.
But I am emceeing the 10th annual Nilsson Sing Along, with which will feature about 30 something artists, each doing one Nilsson song.
Wow.
The thing that impresses me is that the catalog is there are a lot of obscure tunes on there. I'm not sure if Todd assigned them to everybody or everyone was just able to choose the one they wanted, but it's going to be, I think there are more obscurities this year than the last couple.
Wow, nice.
So yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I enjoy doing them. Last year I made a whole lot of mistakes, and I don't really
You've got
know
your cue
why.
cards with you, hopefully, this year, huh?
I have notes. I've always had notes, but my thing is I want to try to. I really want to try to do it without notes.
No.
And sometimes I have to pay for that decision.
It's all good. Well, my apologies to anybody who's watched the first 208 episodes. I'm normally clean shaven and much more put together, but as you know, I just had the Inspire sleep apnea device surgery a couple days ago. So I've got this big surgical thing across my chest, and they had to go in through my neck, but I'm not allowed to shave for 5 or 6 weeks. So I'm looking a little rougher than normal. My voice is a little scratchier, but I feel good. It's going to be interesting once they turn this thing on in 4 or 5 weeks to see how it works. But I've been dealing with, the machine and the sleep apnea for 25 years, and it looks like I might be able to get off of that sooner or later. So kind of cool. But yeah, that's what I got going on.
No, I think you look good.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
It's to straighten this light so that it looks better. But
it's all the extra makeup that I've put on for tonight in the special lighting, so it makes everybody look good. But yeah,
she makes the makeup look good. That was a song by Feel on I think it was IPO Volume 8, maybe.
She makes the makeup.
Scott Sachs, lead singer of that band. They were a major label band for a while. And
Nice.
Speaking of major label bands, our guest tonight had a band that certainly was that. They had 4 albums on Elektra in the 80s, which and their timing was really good, I think. The 80s was rife with what they called alternative music, alternative rock, or the other name for it was college rock, because college radio stations were playing a lot of those albums. I mean,
Right.
REM was probably at the forefront of that. And so many bands came out of, kind of were spawned by REM. And I don't know that this one is one of them, but they were from a similar area. Our guest was from Marietta, Georgia, and lived in Atlanta for a while, which is very near Athens, which is where REM was from. So, I mean, the scene down there with college radio alternative bands was very fruitful. Anyway, the band was called Guadalcanal Diary, and they had 4 albums on Elektra. And then our man recorded a solo album in the 90s called Enthrall. But since then, he hasn't really done a lot of music. Until now, that is. His first album in 30 years, count them, right here, called Tense Music Plays. And it is kind of intense as an album. I don't know if it's tense, but Oh, there you go. That even looks better. But if he says so, then I'm going to go along with it. Anyway, it's
It's a
great
good
to
one.
have him as a guest. He's certainly beloved by a lot of people. So, without further ado, would you please give a huge material issue welcome to Mr. Murray Attaway? Attaway, Murray. How many times did you hear that as a kid? Tell me.
Oh golly, no! You're the first person that's ever said it to me.
I know, really. Just like
Yeah.
just like no one
If
ever
I-
made fun of the name Bash before.
I can
Not
imagine. I can imagine
Yeah.
that no one did. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that joke, I'd have lots of nickels.
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
At least 4 or 5 jars of them, I think.
There you go.
You know,
Well-
I used to be able to tell what somebody, when I just met them, I used to be able to tell what people were sort of going to be like on how they made the joke. Like some people would go, oh, this is Murray. I went, oh, Attaway, Murray. And I think, okay. Yeah, I figured, I know what the next thing I'm going to say to you is, how about them dogs or something like that, you know. That's just some football, you know, that's a football thing here.
That one I don't know.
So other people would sort of go, what you said, I bet you get that a lot. Yeah. and then some people would just go, Then they just sort of do the joke internally, but they wouldn't say it, you know. So yeah, I've heard it a lot. But
It works. It works.
You've got bashed about Bash a lot too, so a lot of bashing.
You know, it works on so many levels. You know.
Yeah, it does.
You could have.
You know the cool thing though, Murray. As an adult, people think my name is so cool. They say, "You must have made that up. It's just too good." It's like, no, if you were me as a kid, you'd know I didn't make it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, people even say that to me. It's like, well, okay, if I was going to make up a name, would I make that one up? I mean, come on, what am I getting out of this? You know, would I use Murray? Would I use Attaway? I mean, it's just a built-in joke. Why would I use that? It's like calling yourself Harry Bottoms or something. It's like, why would I do it? You know, I'd come up with something cool like, you know, Pete Shelley. Although Pete Shelley was already in use, or maybe I would have used it. He was busy being a buzzcock. So,
well, I got to say, in 208 episodes, we've never had anybody open the show by strumming a few intro chords like that. So thank you very much. That was
well. I was working on something when you brought me in, and I had the guitar. It was just amusing myself, so I thought I'd go ahead and come in with a flourish for you there.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not even going to say anything about your last name. I'm just going to sit here and nod, because I changed mine. I changed mine from Smith to Hershberger, and
did you now? Yeah. Well, I'm going to change mine to Smith. I'm just going to change mine to Smith Attaway.
I think if you just change your first name to TH.
PH. Oh,
TH.
Wow. Oh, TH. I thought you said PH. That would work.
TH.
Fataway. I'm not fat, so that won't work. Maybe it would work for that reason.
Fataway. I didn't even think of that, but
trust me, I've heard that one too.
Let's shift gears a bit here, and I'm going to ask you.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah, we probably should. I'm going to ask you about growing up in Marietta. Marietta is not too far from Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, it's about 18 miles, something like that. Not too far, but very separate place. Very, very. It's considered part of the what do they call those for the metropolitan something district. There's a nomenclature for it. So Marietta is that, but it's a very, very separate sort of community. People think, it's Atlanta. It's another bed. Atlanta's a lot like LA in that it's sprawl and it's encompassed everything like LA did. And it's really, and we're very similar. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in LA too, and love LA, and Atlanta's a whole lot like it. But Marietta is really not one of those communities. Marietta is sort of more like Sherman Oaks or something like that.
I lived there for 20 years. So
is Sherman Oaks really? Okay.
Yeah, so.
I had a vocal coach there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good guy.
Now, what kind of music was prevalent on the radio in Marietta? Was it
like
the usual top 40 thing, or
well, actually, we had this extraordinary AM station when I was a kid, little kid, like single digits. In the latter waves of the British invasion, we had this extraordinary radio station called WFOM, and their playlists were kind of legendary. I mean, they played stuff that you would not hear in those days anywhere, especially in the South. I mean, this is sort of like a WFUM almost kind of playlist sometimes. You just stuff. I'd grow up hearing these things, and I'd say to other people, what do you mean you never I mean, the first Dylan song I ever heard was "Rainy Day Women." They played it in heavy rotation on this station. It was that kind of station. I'd say, I'm just trying to think one of those British sort of novelty songs, like Zoot Money, one of those guys, somebody like that. They play stuff like that.
How about You Turn Me On by Ian Whitcomb?
Yeah, that's the one I was trying to think of. That's the one. What's that guy's name?
Jonathan. Right there.
That's Jonathan. What's that guy's name?
Jonathan King.
Jonathan
Everyone's
King.
Gone to the Moon.
That was in heavy rotation. I was like, do. Just this nonsense thing. Yeah, turn me on. We heard that every day on that station. Plus, they played Stones, the Beatles, the Kinks. They played a lot of Kinks, which was great because most stations didn't. They kind of missed the boat on that. But I mean, besides, Sunny Afternoon and things like that. I mean, they play Waterloo Sunset.
That's very cool.
It was cool. So we had that, and then we had the FM stations when I was in high school that were broadcasting out of Atlanta, and they were really great too. Like we used to have WQXI FM, WPLO FM, and they were like album-oriented stations before that term even existed. So yeah, a lot of prog rock back in those days, and plus you had the Southern boogie that was prevalent here, or you had that whole sound. Like who were the later section people like that. You want to say Allman Brothers, but Allman Brothers never really did fit into that. They were more like a jazz fusion band, in part. So that kind of stuff. It's a nice mix. Atlanta and North Georgia in general has always had a really rich, musical sort of atmosphere. I mean, plus you had all of our folks that came from here, like Ray Charles and the Richard and James Brown. You heard their stuff all the time. So
doesn't get much better than that.
No, I mean, to me, it was a really great place to spend your childhood musically.
Did you come from a musical family? Were your parents musical? Did you have that all around you, or were you kind of? Because many people we talk to, you get about 50-50. Yeah, but my parents played, they sang in the choirs. I had music everywhere, but there's quite a number that would get to us and say, no, I really didn't. And the discovery then of music and getting into it is a whole different road.
Well, I sort of did. I was raised by my grandparents, but my father actually, when I was born, he had a little side gig. He was a drummer, and he actually played on some of the. Do y'all know who Bill Lowry was?
Bill Lowry.
Okay. Yeah, he was kind of the guy that sort of is mostly known for kind of coalescing the early Atlanta pop scene. Like he.
Oh, really?
He was if you look him up, I mean, he's kind of road in Atlanta named after him. He had a publishing group. He owned ARC Studios, I think, Studios. Lowry Studios at one point, I think was the name of it. People like Joe South started out with him. Billy Joe Royal, who was in fact from Marietta, down in the Boondocks. He was a Lowry artist. Ray Stevens was a Lowry artist. That's where he started. Tommy Rowe also was. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. But my father,
the Classic Store, were they?
Yeah, Dennis Yost. Yeah, they've had to have been. And actually, that empire went on, and by the time you got to Atlanta Rhythm Section, people like that, those were Lowry connected people. Buddy Bowie that wrote songs, for that those folks. I mean, that was a Lowry guy. But anyway, my dad actually was a drummer, and he did some studio sessions for some, no, without credit, but he's on some of the records that they tossed out there and tried to make hits out of. I'm never was able to find them, which one. So yeah, so yes and no.
Okay,
it's a lot of words to answer a simple question.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you're basically turning yourself on via the radio and what you're hearing, from the stations and things. So what prompted you to start playing or start learning an instrument? What was that? What was that impetus?
I don't know. There was something that felt really natural to me about writing songs. I just wanted to be a songwriter. I couldn't sing very well early on, and there's argument as to whether I actually still can sing very well. But I also learned there's several things. I mean, obviously Beatles and everybody else like that, and the Georgia artists that I mentioned, like Little Richard, another big one, but Al Green, people like that, a lot of R&B, a lot of old blues stuff. I would listen to it and I would think, I wonder how I can do something like this, but not this, I wonder how that would work. And really hearing, I was trying to figure out, how would I sing, if I was going to sing my own songs? And the closest thing I could come to was like, well, Lennon, I could probably sort of kind of do that style, it's my range, and it's kind of this white guy voice, I'd sound like an idiot if I try to do anything but what that is, and he was the coolest one at one point to me, I thought, well, I love that voice, so maybe it'll sound like that. But I don't know, writing songs always just sort of seemed to be there, it seemed to be something I wanted to do. So when Bowie came around, when he got really well known, like with Ziggy and Man Who Sold the World before that, and I got those albums, I was like, I can write 3-chord songs. Then I heard Lou Reed, and I'm like, well, I'm done. I can definitely write songs, because he's only got 4 maybe 4 chords in his repertoire. So yeah, I got it, and they're great songs. So
Yeah.
Then Eno, and with Eno, it's like the non-musician's musician. So there you have it. It's like, okay, I'm on.
And you started on guitar, or were you start on keyboards?
Oh, guitar. Still working on it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Wow.
Now, when you were in high school and listening to this kind of stuff, were you considered kind of an outcast because all the other guys were listening to Skynyrd and other Southern rock?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because I really wasn't into that back then, and I was listening to stuff like Roxy Music and Bowie and Velvet Underground, and at the same time I was listening to Yes and Jethro Tull, and so it was sort of like that crowd that really dug. Nothing against Skynyrd, I mean, they're fine, I'm not disparaging them, and I came to really dig those records after a while, but not in high school. But you had the crowd that dug all that, and so everybody else could listen to everything else, and it just kind of came into this big blob. It's like, well, Yes and Velvet Underground somehow worked together, because it wasn't this, it wasn't Skynyrd, it wasn't, Eric Quincy Tate or Grinder Switch or one of those bands, back then. So yeah, so you got a little bit of stink eye for that. Oh yeah, but there was more to it culturally than that too. I mean, my crowd was the crowd that maybe experimented with expanding their horizons, if you follow me. So
right.
Yeah. Indeed.
Whereas the other crowd mainly drank beer.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Again, that's fine if that's whatever.
Oh yeah,
sure.
No judgment here.
Floating people boat, that's absolutely fine. So so were you playing with other people come high school? Did you?
No, I wasn't good enough. I couldn't play anything. I couldn't do anything.
So you weren't any kind of high school garage band get ups?
A friend of mine, I've never actually talked about this, but I'll tell it to you. A friend of mine and I, this is about when Here Come the Warm Jets came out, the first Eno solo album. And very heavily influenced by that. And a friend of mine and I had, and we also listened to like Captain Beefheart. A friend of mine and I had, he had a Wallensack tape recorder, and I had a mandolin of all things, and a flute. But I didn't know how to play either one of them. I'm not a flute, but a recorder. I didn't know how to play them. So what we would do is we'd make these tapes with this Wallensack recorder and this stuff, and I'd sort of make up these little song lyrics, and each one of them was its own little song. They were just, complete blather. But I called it the Meat Band. That was the name of the band. This was in 1973, and I wish I had those tapes, because I mean they're just astonishingly stupid and bad. But so that was the only thing I did in high school. Right after high school, Jeff Walls and I got together and started writing songs and recording some stuff. Jeff was, as you probably know, the guitar player for Guadalcanal Diary and my main writing partner. And he passed away in 2019, which is the bitter loss. My best friend. But anyway,
I'm sorry.
We would thank you. We would. Jeff was like the guitar hero in the neighborhood, in the area. I mean, everybody knew who he was, because he was a very good guitar player in high school. And I was the only person around that would sing. Everybody wanted to play guitar, or they wanted to play drums, or they wanted to play bass, but nobody wanted to sing. But I would sing. And so we would make tapes, write songs together, make tapes in his parents' basement. And I would sing with those. I mean, I was dreadful, really dreadful. I don't know how we did it. I could play 3 chords, and I had an acoustic guitar by that time. And I could sort of sing, or at least I wasn't scared to. So that's how we started that. It was Jeff and I started in his basement. And
by the way,
that was the closest to being in a band that I ever was in, until I got in a Yes cover band. That was interesting.
I was going to say, who else is known for using a Wallensack recorder?
Beefheart.
Back in the day? Maybe him. That's not who I was thinking of.
He used a web core, actually, I think it was.
Okay.
Ryan Wilson.
Ryan Wilson. Yeah, he used to go out to. He had a Wallensack recorder with like about a 2,000-foot cord, and he would go out to the ocean and record ocean sounds, among other things around the beach, to augment his songs. So yeah,
I didn't know that, but it makes great sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, he always mentioned that brand when he recounted that thing. So
how odd, because I think of those as like school recorders. Those are the ones you always saw in classrooms and whatnot. Those in the web cores,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So how do you pop right into, then, if you're saying that you're not afraid to sing, but you can play a couple chords on the guitar? How do you become Guadalcanal Diary? And I mean, it's just we talked to a lot. We've interviewed a lot of people, and there's many of them. There's a progression, through youth and into high school and developing into there. It's not so much, no, I didn't really do anything in high school, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm putting some lyrics together. I'm singing some things, and I mean, you kind of quickly became what you became without not a whole lot of background to it.
Yeah, sort of. It's a little more to it than that. Jeff, like I said, was the local guitar hero. I mean, there's a lot of good players, but Jeff was very good, and so as a result, he was always in a lot of bands. He was in this band, he's in that band. That nobody that you ever heard of ever did much of anything. But so he's always playing. And one of the groups that he played with had a drummer named John Poe. And I saw this band, and by that time I had already been in a band. I'd been in my first real band that I put together. It was called Strictly American. And I had written songs for that band. And we played a couple of places. I mean, and the drummer actually was Curtis Crow, who went on to be in Pylon. Yes, we were all really close-knit little group. These Marriott.
Oh, DB Records.
Watch out for us. Yes, that's right. That's right, David. And so, anyways, I'd been in that band, and we'd done a few things, and then just kind of split up. But Jeff was always playing, and he played in a band with John Poe, and I saw him, and I was like, man, that drummer, God, he's fantastic. I've never seen anybody play like that, and still haven't really. But after that band, whatever it was, split up, Jeff and I started talking about trying to actually finally put a band together. We'd never done it really together, and so we just made tapes in parents' basement. So we did that, started writing songs for it. And I said, we need to get John Poe to play drums. He's like, yeah, he won't do it. He's decided he's giving it up, and he wants to be a singer, and he wants to be a bass player and guitar, all this stuff, which he is. He's all those things, but he's a world-class drummer. And so I said, we'll talk to him, see if we just con him into playing with us. And he did. And John did it on a temporary basis. And his big joke was, I was their temporary drummer for 8 years or 9 years or whatever. Right. But anyway, Rat Crow, our bass player, was my girlfriend at the time. And again, Mariettans are just like incestuous little knot of people, because she and Jeff ended up getting married and having children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway, it was fine.
I hope so.
With everyone's blessing, there's no animosity about it. But she was, we were hanging out, and she had seen my other band rehearse, and she said, I want to play bass. And I'm like, well, let's go get you a bass. And so we went down to this pawn shop in Atlanta and got her a Fender Mustang for like $100 or something like that, which she still has. I just saw her the other day. And she started kind of teaching herself to play bass. And then Jeff, who was a great teacher, took over and taught her how to play bass, and apparently a few other things too. So since I got married, but
hello.
Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the really dull and uninteresting story of how we got together like that. But yeah, there was a lot. There was it that happened reasonably quickly, but there was a lot of prep to it. Like I said, Jeff was in countless bands. I had Strictly American. We'd been messing with recording for years. So it worked out like that. There was some nugget in there that I was gonna unearth. It'll come back to me. There was something in that story that I forgot to tell you. But
so getting signed to Elektra at a future point, was that because of the MTV basement tapes, or was
it was in spite of it?
In spite of it,
really?
I'm trying to figure out the timing here, because you had to have done something significant to really even get noticed by this MTV basement tapes.
Well, the DB album, I would think. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
We had put out the first album on DB Rex out of Atlanta, a great label. Good pal of mine, Danny Beard. Actually, we're related by marriage, and we didn't know it for years, but we found out later on.
Is that the EP? Is that
that's Danny Beard? Yeah, it's Wax and Facts record store. Yeah, and he started a label and just signed. Put out all these great records back then. And the first Guadalcanal Diary was one of the records he put out. Walking in the Shadow of the Big Man. That actually wasn't technically our first record. We'd done one before that. We'd done an EP. There was a couple that was trying to do a record label called EOD, and they ponied up the dough for us to go in a little studio and make a 4-song EP, which we did. And is that
Watusi Radio? That
Watusi Rodeo, yeah.
Rodeo
yeah.
That didn't have that song on the.
Didn't have the song. I hadn't written it yet.
Right.
That's where I got the idea, was from the talking.
Right.
But
I got it.
But, yeah, I know it's kind of hard to sort that one out. But yeah, so we did the DB record, and it got some press, and it got college radio airplay, and sold for what it was, and for that time period for an indie record like that. And we did our first national club tour and did the whole bit that everybody does. And by that time, we'd gotten enough attention in that realm that we figured, well, MTV was in its infancy, and they were doing some sort of inventive things, and they did the Basement Tapes contest, which, if your audience doesn't know what that is, you want me to tell them, or you want to tell them?
No, you can tell them. I have just a follow-up funny story to it, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is that I don't even know which one that was. It wasn't the very first one, but it was like the third, fourth, or something like that. Anyway, they had this little contest where unsigned bands could send in a music video, kids a music video was a thing back in the day whereby record labels promoted their artists. Anyway, our friend and guy that worked with us he was part of Guadalcanal Diary, a business part of his name was Warren Chilton. He was our manager for a while. He's still one of my closest friends, and he actually did one of the videos for this new album. He was just getting started doing video stuff back then, and he put together the Watusi Rodeo video and submitted it. And he did this all on his own. I mean, he shot us, playing live shows, and he collected all this other footage, found footage and stuff like this, and put it all together, sent it to the Basement Tapes contest, and we came in dead last on that contest.
Whoa.
And what the deal was, everybody, as you guys know, but for the benefit of your audience, you had to phone in and vote for your favorite. And we were last. I forget who it was that won, but it was like a hair metal type. I mean, I don't say that disparagingly. It's just that's all I know to say. Just like people called me Jangle Pop. I mean, I don't like that either, but I know what it means, so I go with it. But anyway, so the prize was you got a one-shot record deal with Elektra Records, and then you got some Yamaha gear. And so we lost, but a year later we had a 4-record deal with Elektra, but we didn't have any Yamaha gear. So I thought we did okay.
You got the better of it.
Yeah, and that video was in like medium and light rotation for a long time on MTV. So win-win, I guess.
I was wondering who you lost to. That was
it's findable. I just don't know their names off the top of my head.
But there were other acts. Were there any of note that came in second or third or fourth?
I don't think there was. I don't think anybody that came. To say of note is a slippery thing. I don't think there's anybody that lasted. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, I have very good friends of mine that I grew up with that ended up winning the MTV Basement Tapes.
Oh, who was it?
They were the Sharks out of Lancaster, PA. They had they actually won. I think it was the year after you, which was like one of the last years they did it. That's why I was wondering whether there was a tie-in. But they had their Elektra contract, and they got the album out, which Elektra tried to make them seem like a Mennonite Pennsylvania Dutch band out of Lancaster, which they were not.
How cool would that be, though? I mean, come on. I want to reverse course and try that one. I wonder if somebody would sign me up to do a Mennonite act.
Well, wow. They put out this album called In a Black and White World, on black and white cover, and everything was black and white, like the Amish don't have electricity and all this kind of stuff. I think they played on that angle too much, and it kind of made their career quickly, and then just destroyed them all in one get-go, because they were really actually very, very good band, very talented, and just never could break out of that MTV Basement Tapes winner.
Isn't that funny? I guess we're lucky that we didn't win it. Yeah.
The big question, though, is how does a band who loses finishes dead last in MTV's Basement Tapes, where the prize is?
You rub it in, will you, David? Come on, man. It's the wound is still there.
How is it that you did get? Not only did you get signed, but you got a 4-record deal out of that.
Yeah. Well, that happened because we stayed out touring the first album, and everybody came after us. We had a little bidding war there. So all of the I don't know how accurate what I'm about to say is, but I think you can probably surmise it. I mean, we're all grown-ups here, aren't we? Pretty much, I think some of the motivation of all, because I'm serious, all the majors that existed at that time came after us while we were on tour, and it was pretty swell because that meant you'd be out playing some crummy venue, and next thing you know, you were eating dinner on their expense account at the finest restaurant in town, and they try to put you up at the Four Seasons, all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
But in that process, I have to say, I met some really great people that I'm still friends with. The guy that signed us to Elektra was Kevin Patrick, and we're still friends. And I actually saw him up in New York just a couple months ago. We keep in touch. Great guy. signed the Georgia Satellites to Elektra too. But it had a little bit better success with them than it did with us, but better sign. But that's the way it happened, and it really came down to this. I think I know this because I saw it happen when Nirvana got big. When Nirvana got big, this is how I can say it. When Nirvana got big, got signed to Geffen, which I was on Geffen when they got that deal. All the labels, whether they want to admit it or not, dispatched envoys to the Pacific Northwest to seek out skinny guys wearing wool caps and tattered flannel shirts and with guitars. Seriously. Remember? I mean, that's what they did. Sure. And hey, Siri thinks I'm talking to her. I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
So did you hear that? Anyways, so take that model and run it back to 1984 and see what you come up with.
Well, no, what I was saying when I introduced you was your timing was perfect because
I wondered how you meant that. So
that all alternative rock college radio thing was happening big time with MTV and everything else. So what you were doing when REM got signed, suddenly the labels started swooping down to the Atlanta area, the Athens area.
They did. They sure did. Yeah. But what was funny is they didn't find us there. They found us out on tour. We'd already had enough notice, that we were a recognizable group. Not like, REM had predated us a little bit, and they had done really well already. They'd already gotten signed. I know they were on IRS. I don't know if they'd gotten the Warner deal yet or not, but at any rate,
not at that point.
They were really, they were making it. They were getting big. So that was part of the big impetus. It really was. I'm sure of it, but we were fortunate because the two labels that we narrowed it down to were Elektra with Kevin Patrick as the A&R and Geffen with Tom Zutaut as the A&R. And neither of them really were trying to do that, honestly. They might have been instructed to do it immediately, from the beginning, but that wasn't what they were up to. Zutaut really loved the band, and so did Kevin. So and I think that's one of the reasons we sort of narrowed it down to those guys. I ended up signing with Tom Zutaut to Geffen after Guadalcanal split, so didn't move too far,
By the way, you lost out to a hair glam metal band called Bang.
No kidding.
I just looked it up. Yeah, Bang.
Where is Bang? What's Bang doing now?
There was a 70s metal band called Bang.
Yeah, I'm sure Bang. There's a few of them. There's a record label called Bang too.
Yeah, there was. Sure was.
Yeah,
and there's a noise called Bang.
Yeah, well, they're never to be heard from again. Unfortunately, I don't. That's the last bang for your buck.
Oh, goodness, that's great.
That's awesome.
But that's how we ended up going with Elektra. Right. So long story short, the one thing that they almost didn't ink the deal because we wanted to have our first album re-released, and they didn't want to do it. And we were like, well, why do you want us to do that? So, because DB did a great job. DB Rex was a great indie label, but they didn't have the distribution that you guys have. They didn't have the promotion that a big label has. This record we don't feel like it got promoted far enough. We don't feel like it got distributed the way it should. So that's our offer. If you want us, you got to put that record. And they did, to their credit. They could have just said, piss off. You don't know hillbillies. You don't know what you're talking about. Move on. But they didn't. So,
Did they remix it? Did they remix or remaster?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't touch it. Okay, it sounded good the way it was. We did it right. Don Dixon produced it, and it was properly mastered. I forget who mastered it, but it was all done well. It's a good sounding record.
That's great. Because most labels would insist upon that.
The only thing that they did was put Elektra on it, instead of DB. So they didn't change the cover art, nothing. Right. So it's pretty remarkable.
And you did pretty well to come up with four albums on Elektra.
Yeah.
That's impressive feat. Period. Just to to continue to put albums out
It wasn't a bad deal. We always thought we did pretty well. You get interviewers would invariably say, we got the endless comparison to REM. It's like there's I never knew why that was, except for the proximity.
That's it.
And the fact that some writers are very lazy. But we get those questions like, well, how does it feel? Do you feel bad because you didn't get as big as Outreach? Are you kidding? We felt like we did get big. I mean, our big goal was to headline the 688 Club on a Friday night. We got to do that, but we got to do a lot more than that. So I was happy with what we did. We all were.
But did you get to tour outside the U.S.?
Yeah, we toured Europe.
Oh, wow.
Fun. Yeah, we were big in Scandinavia, which is
wow.
which is interesting. I mean, we did well everywhere. We did well in the UK, did well in France and Germany, but for some reason we sold a lot of records in Scandinavia, which is interesting because my child lives in Scandinavia now. My child and my first wife ended up moving to Scandinavia.
Oh, wow.
Separately. And they're not Scandinavian, neither one of them. So,
well, both
so
Mark
that means I go there a lot now. So, and have for
Mark
like
and
20
I are
years.
huge fans. We're huge fans of Scandinavian music. I do my International Pop Overthrow Festival in Stockholm every year.
Yeah, that's right.
We're just there. Yeah.
I've got artists on my label out of Oslo and Moss, Norway, and so I'm a very big Scandinavian pop.
I love Sweden. I mean, I can give directions in a lot of places in Sweden. I've been there so much. And I love Norway. Haven't spent as much time there, but it's a great country. Actually, going back to Sweden, going over there for a visit in a month. So
nice.
Well, but please schedule your next trip in mid-June, and so you can play IPO in Stockholm, because I'd be honored.
Are you making that offer for real?
Yeah, I'm making that offer for real.
I accept.
There you go.
Done. Done. I wanted to play it in the past, as you know, and couldn't, and I want to. So yes, absolutely. That's a done deal.
I'm gonna put it down in ink.
Send me an email. Whatever you need to do. I want to do that. I want to play in Europe. That's something I really, really want to do right now.
Have you been to the Cavern Club?
I haven't.
I can make that happen too if you want.
I have not so hip on playing a bunch of shows here in the U.S. I mean, I'm doing a few, but I'm not really going back to touring like that. Europe is a different deal.
Well, the
Cavern Club. I'll do a lot of things there that I wouldn't do here.
I get that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Audiences are very different, as you know. There. I mean, we're music oriented. I mean, they don't come necessarily. They come to hear stuff. So.
Yeah.
And I go to Europe fairly regularly. So yeah, let's talk about this. I would love to do that.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to rewind one quick second though, Murray.
Yeah, sorry, we're making a business deal here. Can you hang on a second?
No, I know. I'm trying to interrupt this business deals. Guadalcanal Diary. Whose idea was that originally for that name? And besides the actual book, is that where it came from?
Here's
what made sense to call your band Guadalcanal Diary, which in some senses rolls off the tongue easily, but it's a mouthful.
It is, and most people would get it wrong in the early days. You should have seen how it was spelled and how we roll up and see it on the marquee and
Guacamole Daily.
Yeah, stuff like that, dictionary and whatnot. Dairy. We got dairy a lot. That came because we had put the band together, and Jeff and I were working day jobs as bench techs in this electronics joint and the electronics assembly place. And so I'd see him every morning, and we were trying to come up with a canny name that we thought was interesting. And this was post New Wave, so we were trying to really get away from that, whole thing. And I had watched the movie Carnal Knowledge on television the night before, and I guess it had been on cable or something like that. And I'd watched it. And in the movie, Jack Nicholson's character says to Art Garfunkel, who is his roommate, "You think I'm paraphrasing. You think you're such an intellectual. You read so many books. You're such a reader. Hey, who read Guadalcanal Diary? Me. I read Guadalcanal Diary. I heard it and I was like, oh, there we go. That's the name." So I went into Jeff the next morning. I said, well, yeah, Guadalcanal Diary. I mean, we knew what the book was. We weren't unfamiliar with it. Neither of us had read it, but I said that name and he's like, oh, there we go. That's it. So we just went with it because it sounded nebulous enough that we felt like we could do whatever we wanted to do under that umbrella, So that's where it came from.
Okay, I had to get the info on that.
I wish I could tell you more exciting stories about these things. They're all so mundane, It's like, and then this happened, and then it was Tuesday. Sorry.
And then it was Tuesday. There's a song title for you. And then it was Tuesday.
Yeah, not bad. I'm gonna write that down.
No, I mean that time period was an incredible time period because you not only had the the hair metal glam stuff, you had a lot of the English new romantic dance things, but complete for it all was really this, as David was saying, the college radio, the indie band type of thing. So I was into all of the whole spectrum back then, but depending on what we listened to up here in the Northeast, I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You would get little bursts of things like REM and Pylon, but it wasn't in heavy rotation up here. So most of the stuff that was hitting was was this UK new romantic and
you'd be surprised that's what we were getting down here too. I mean, there were stations like WRAS, God bless them, that was the Georgia State University College station, which was such a powerful station that, in case you don't know this, they were the only station back in those days that was a college radio station that was actually serviced by the majors. They treated them just like they were a commercial station because they were so influential in the Southeast. We're talking about WRAS in Atlanta, the Georgia State radio station. And and so they would play a lot of regional music, like, because see, even though say REM or DVD had gotten giant by then, so that's been a few years before that. So, but people like us, Pylon, Love Tractor, those were still, no matter what we'd done, those were still sort of regional bands to like the commercial stations and even some of the college stations. But RES would hammer all of that stuff, and so that's where you heard it. But like what you're saying is that you got the English stuff was prevalent in playlists up there, and it was here too. Yeah. I mean, we probably heard way more Bow Wow Wow and Adamant than we did, I don't know, Pylon, or somebody like that.
Right.
On college radio, that's what you'd hear.
Sure.
Which is fine because I mean I loved that stuff. I still like it, and I loved hearing all of the new romantic bands come out of England, and the whole period was really, really cool because there was so much different stuff happening. You couldn't, I mean, everything was kind of worth listening to for a little bit,
And I love being in this area because I was right between Philadelphia and New York City, and at the time there was a slew of clubs, obviously in Philly, New York, in the whole corridor. I mean, every single night of the week there was probably 5-6 places within an hour drive that you could go to hear bands coming in from everywhere.
We played Philly quite a few times.
You're probably at the East Side Club or the Ripley or those kind of places many times.
At several different places, and I played it as a solo too when my Geffen album came out. You know who hammered us up in that region though was not just us, but a lot of other southern bands was LIR out on Long Island.
Oh yeah,
and they beat us to death, and everybody else too. They were great. So.
Oh yeah. I know. I was brought up in that area, so I know that station.
Yeah, we love this some LIR, boy.
Let's move ahead, mainly because I have to head over to that Nilsson tribute show that I'm seeing.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it will be.
I wonder who's going to do. I wonder who's going to do the naughty one.
I already know who's going to do that one.
Oh, I can't remember the title of it. What's the title of it?
You're breaking my heart.
You're breaking my heart. Yeah.
Nilsson actually wanted that to be a single. Can you imagine?
I remember that. Yeah.
I don't think that was going to work out. But anyway,
He was quite the contrarian, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Let's talk about the new album. Now, this is your first album in 30 years. What I could say possessed, motivated, but why'd you do it?
Because I got tired of not doing it. You know, I had done the podcast where I had to write all the music, the bad music on purpose instead of by accident. It was great because you could literally write bad songs on purpose, like, whoa, all right, cool, for a fake band in the Dazzle Dudes podcast, and it got me back into recording. And I'd been writing songs all along. I never quit doing that, but it got me into recording them and thinking about it. And I told people over and over again for years, "Oh, you're going to do another record. We're going to do another." Yeah. One day. Finally, one day came. I mean, you know, the clock's ticking for everyone. So that's it, really. When I quit the business, I quit. You know, I on purpose. I mean, I asked to be let out of my contract. My child had been born. I would stay home and be a dad and not be on tour and start a business. And I did all of those things. So, and you know, had a good, comfortable life and wanted to finally get around to doing this, and I did. You know, it was time. That's really the best answer. Like I said, all my answers are so mundane. There's nothing interesting about any of this.
All right, well then here we go. Here's the new album. It's called Tense Music Plays. So that's obviously, it's almost like you're writing a play or a show, and this is when the tense music plays is what you're alluding to. Yeah. Are those your actual fingerprints? There's the interesting question.
No, they are not. Those aren't. It's interesting that you see them as fingerprints. No, they're just blobs.
I know. I'm just having a good time with it.
Oh, I think you're being serious. Okay. No, yes, those are my fingerprints. They sure are, Mark. Now you got me. Hell yes. Well, got him from the local police station.
Let's play something from the album. Let's hear something. I'm going to run the website across the bottom. MurrayAttaway.com is where you get all the information, and I'm sure it's available in all the usual places.
It is. It dropped to streaming. I released the whole thing to streaming just on Friday the 13th. Before that, it was available only as download and vinyl. Now, go get it.
Only download vinyl. Why do I have a CD? Because
you're special, David.
It's
the truth. You're one of the special people that got one because I pressed 100 of those for special people.
Very nice.
I'm honored. Yeah, I might have to get the vinyl though. Anyway, let's start out.
It's orange.
Oh, I love that. Let's start out from the beginning. We'll play the first track on the album called "Breathe." What's the background on that one?
Breath. It's breath.
Breath.
Sorry,
yeah, I can't. I failed English a few times.
That's okay. I didn't. I ain't had no book learning myself. It was just a song about a failure, a failure in a relationship, basically a failure in life, and looking backwards on it.
Oh,
you know, all my stuff is kind of opaque like that. It's like, no, you tell me what it means. I don't know.
I will. I'll give you an observation right after we're done. Here we go.
I dig that shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
I can see a house by the side of the road, standing empty, cold and spare. Once the windows glow with light, too much went too wrong in there. I can hear a radio crackle with all the people's stories. Static waves are souls to save and tales of fallen glories. And it almost takes my breath away. And it almost
This Breath by Murray Attaway. Wow.
I could hear some pain in your voice, definitely.
Yeah. It was a pretty personal little ditty there.
But yeah, when I first started listening to this new album, and what really what caught me immediately, I was back in the same kind of era. I was a big fan of the Payolas, and Paul Hyde then later on came out with solo work, and it's very much, you know, 'cause the Payolas were very much, you know, a pop band and whatnot. But Paul, then his first solo album was really heartfelt, and you could hear you know, the pain in the voice and whatnot. And so immediately, especially when I heard Better Days off of your new album, it's one of my favorite tracks we talked about a little earlier. And
thank you.
It just really, that really struck me. And it's the same kind of parallel, and it's done very, very well. So big fan of this album.
Thank you. I tracked all of it here and played all the guitars and did everything on it except 3 songs have Robert Schmid from the Swimming Pool Cues playing drums and bass on, and then 1 song, which is Stars Behind the Moon, has Anna Balka on violin, and the rest of it is just me. First time I've ever played all the stuff on an album like that, and
wow.
But it wouldn't sound like it sounds if it wasn't for Mark Williams, who engineered and produced it, and won't take the producer's credit for whatever reason, but he did. So because he's
got a great sound.
Thank you.
You can't overestimate how important a producer is.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, not a real one. You know, not somebody who really does that job. Mark's a fabulous engineer, fabulous mixer, and a very, very fabulous producer too. So came out of retirement to do it. So
well, we're glad you did.
Yeah, I'm glad he did too. Yeah, it was fun doing it because I had 2 years to work on it, and he was so patient, you know. And I'd send him these files, and he'd go, "Yeah, let's try do another take of this." Guitar
part. That leads to a question: How different did this feel recording this album as compared to, you know, anything that you did in the 80s?
Every other record that I've ever done is completely different. But fortunately, I've had a home studio set up since the 80s because I was always into, you know, being able to write and arrange and stuff like that on my own time. So when I got signed to Geffen, that was one of the things I asked for when I signed with him. I said, look, instead of me going and burning up studio time to give you demos, how about just give me a budget, I'll buy gear with it. And I did, and I outfitted a studio. This was in my old house. This is all the newer stuff. Anyway, that I've done it for years, and I love doing it. It gives me time to stretch out and think and do things the way I really hear them. You know, get as close as I can.
Sending files, though, not necessarily being in the presence of people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's different. But it worked. You know, I mean, it's the first time I've ever fully done it. You know, for a whole record. I've done it to some extent, like if I was going to be in somebody else's record or something like that. But yeah, doing a whole LP that way, that was the first time. It's interesting, but he and I know each other so well because we worked so many times together. There was kind of a lot of shorthand to it too, you know. Plus, I had to sort of relearn how to do some of this stuff. I had to relearn how to record properly, and he was great. He helped me do that. He was very, very patient with me about it. So, big shout to him.
Well done.
Let's play the next track from the album, "Stars Behind the Moon." Another great track. What can you tell us about that?
What I can tell you about that is based. That is me trying to write a song. I'm as bad as anybody else to buy into myths, and I buy into myths about everything. I'm like Lewis Carroll said, you know, I believed 7 impossible things before breakfast or something like that. That's me. And one of the things I've always bought into is the old blues player myth. You know, the notion of the old Delta blues players, that they were this, that, the other thing, you know, that sort of came up when people first started collecting blues, 78, in the 40s and 50s. And this mythology that sprung up around it when they were real people that had really, really hard lives, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what that song's about. It's about sort of Yeah, coming to the realization myself, this is a real human here. This is not some bit of myth. It's some piece of a fabric that I'm supposed to enjoy. And that's what the song is.
Okay.
It's funny because it's not a blues song at all.
No. Well, let's feel that fabric right now on Material Issues. Here we go with Stars Behind the Moon by Mr. Murray Attaway.
Bent with grace and almost broken, solemn cracks in a holy moan, roars of pain and violence, squeezed right down to silence, cry from the heart of an earthbound soul that could chase the devil to the deepest hole. Thought it was stars behind the moon, but it was just someone in the lonely room. Now it's sharp, keen, and clear. This is the voice in dreams I hear. It echoes way down in my ears where phantoms gather and the past draws near, covered in dust of 100 years. Drink and lust and a drunkard's tears. I thought it was stars behind the moon, but it's just someone in a lonely room. Thought it was stars behind the moon, but it was just a voice in a lonely room. That voice came from skin and bone in a rundown place where it lived alone, way across town but not yet dead, waiting for Jesus or a bottle instead. Well, while I'm both on a northbound train and won't be coming back here again, I thought it was stars behind the moon, but it's just someone in a lonely room. Thought it was stars behind the moon, it's just someone in a lonely room. Should be stars behind the moon, but it's just a voice in a lonely
Your voice is really good at that, Murray. That's really good.
Absolutely beautiful song. And it's one of those songs where even if you happen to do an event where you played after a rock band and everybody's talking because they're all hyped up, that song would quiet the crowd down. Absolutely.
That's kind of you to say that. Yeah, I love playing that song. I love Anna's violin on it. It's
absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what makes it for me.
And real violin, real violin,
real violin. Yeah. Everything on this record is real, kids.
And speaking of the record, we posted, right, it's Murray Attaway, Tense Music Plays. It's murrayattaway.com. It's been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It's available at all the usual places. It's out streaming on Spotify. Pick it up at Amazon. You know, buy the T-shirts at murrayattaway.com. I did want to
buy the coffee mug, buy the hat.
Coffee mug.
I hadn't gotten that far yet. I'm still starting out.
Dazzledudes.com. We mentioned it briefly during the show, but Murray's got a great podcast that he did for 2 seasons, all about this faux, I guess, glam rock kind of thing you got going on. You talk to fake songs and bad songs and have to do that. But dazzledudes.com kind of sends you in that direction to check out that podcast as well, because it's really, really good.
That's all me too. I did all those voices and
Wonderful.
played all the music. Yeah. It's
MurrayAttaway.com.
It's what I did instead of therapy.
And you said this is on orange vinyl, right? Orange vinyl?
Translucent orange vinyl.
Translucent orange. Wow.
So if you're a black vinyl purist, you don't want it. But hang on, because I may do a run of those too.
You can spray paint it. It's all good.
Yeah. Spray paint. It'll sound really good. Then sounds extra special if you spray paint it.
It does. It slows it down.
What did you say, David, about orange vinyl?
I said I can handle orange vinyl just fine.
Yeah, well, I've got friends that are really, really strict collectors, and they hate colored vinyl, and I've never.
A lot of people think, because as it used to be, that it doesn't sound as good, but not these days. That's not true.
Not these days. I agree with you.
Well, it's funny. I got a whole box of hundreds of 45s, or I guess they were 70 and 45s from my neighbors across the street. Back in the days of RCA Victor on their 45s in the 50s, they were releasing colored vinyl.
They had a whole red series.
The red series, they got the blue series, they got the green series, and I've got all this stuff in my basement. I never knew it was as prolific as that in the 50s.
Well, even before that, on 78s, there was a bunch of companies that did picture 78s.
And that's something.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I have a few of those. I like to collect those things. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Long history of pressing stuff onto things where it doesn't belong. Yes. We like to do that.
I'm going to bow out, but before I say goodbye, before I play this song, I'd like to thank you so much for appearing.
Thank you, David.
It's been an utter pleasure and an honor to have you on. And I'm just going to leave by playing a song that, in most people's minds, you're probably best known for. And it's I'll be honest, it's my favorite song of Guadalcanal Diary. And that would be Litany, Life Goes On. It's such a classic.
Thank you.
So I'm going to say goodbye. Mark can wind things up. And
okay.
Yeah, I will send you an email for sure.
Please do. I'm serious about that.
I really appreciate it. Anyway, here we go with from the great album 2x4, which was reissued on CD on Rhino Handmade. Here we go with the first track on it, Litany, Life Goes On.
Have a great night, David.
Thank you.
So long, David.
Thanks a lot.
Like a mirror, I see light. So much clearer. We move so quickly. Who knows where the time goes? Where does this road lead? No one knows. No one knows. Listen to the single heart beating. Rhythm for an ever-changing song. I see light with surprise. I see light.
For your collection.
Oh, in your eyes. Take all your troubles, put them in a common file. Light a fire with reason. Watch it rise. Watch it rise. Listen to the single voice singing.
Man, if that doesn't make you happy, I don't know what does. I'm just going to keep playing it. You just got to smile through that. It's a litany, Guadalcanal Diary. I love it. Murray, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Material
Thanks,
Issues.
Mark. No, it's my pleasure.
Absolute pleasure getting to know you. Number one, living through the 80s and everything by Guadalcanal Diary just takes me right back. But the brand new album, Tense Music Plays by Murray Attaway, got to pick it up. It's really, really well done. And, I've been listening to it to death for this last week, and it's on my constant walking the dogs playlist. So got to check it out, everybody.
I'm
Murray
very flattered by that statement, and I thank you for it. Walking the Dogs playlist is an important one.
It's a very important one because
I agree.
It really is. So I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that tonight when we sign off. I actually, everybody in the neighborhood hears it because I've got a little portable speaker that hangs off my shoulder bag with the treat. I don't listen to headphones with my dogs because I need to talk to them while we're walking. Just like that. It's exactly it.
This one sounds great.
Fantastic.
You can pair it automatically with a second one.
So I'm blasting. I've been blasting Murray Attaway around the neighborhood.
God, your neighbors must just really hate you now.
Well, yeah, I've had some things thrown at me, but we that's actually what this came from. It's not surgery, but
yeah, I'm curious to know about that after we sign off. Maybe you can tell me something about it. Indeed. So what we'll do is you stay with me. I'm going to just tell people who's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'll say good night, and then you'll stay with me after we sign off the actual stream. So I'll tell you about this quick. Okay. But everybody, it's been Murray Attaway of Guadalcanal Diary and his great solo record for the first time in 30 years. Tense Music Plays. Got to pick it up. All the usual places. Amazon. It's out in Spotify. MurrayAttaway.com. Get the coffee mug. And Bandcamp. You can get it on
Bandcamp.
You get the vinyl. The remaining vinyl. We got a little bit left.
There you go. And coming up, David had to run off to the Nilsson tribute show tonight, which is very cool. He's emceeing that. Next week's a wide open date. David and I will be playing some Stump the Bash and doing some music trivia, what we always do for a whole episode. But after that, on July 6th, we've got the wonderful Chris Stamey of the DBs.
Good.
It's going to be a great show.
Good guy.
Classic. Well, they call him power pop as well, but just really, really good guy. So that's coming up 2 days after July 4th on July 6th. That'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then the week after that, on July 13th, we've got the husband and wife team of Kurt Ryle and Kristen Pinnell of the Gripweeds, North Jersey band here that's on Wicked Cool. And they've got a brand new album coming out as well. So we'll be listening to some Gripweeds music on the 13th. So everybody come back and join us right here at materialissues.com. Tell all your friends, subscribe, hit the bell, whatever you have to do for all that kind of stuff. If not, we've got every episode archived at materialissues.com, 209 episodes after we hang up tonight. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. But everybody, thanks for hanging out. Thank you, Murray. Have a great evening, everybody. And we'll see you right back here next Sunday on Material Issues. Have a great night. Cheers.